If there were ever two words that were certain to bring a response from, well, just about anyone you meet, they'd have to be new baby. Hey, welcome to Mornings with Bishop Robert. Thanks for joining me on the top spot on the internet for Beverages with the Bishop. You know, my goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew, and then help them get to know him and his word personally and better. So if our time together today speaks to your heart, would you let me invite you to like, subscribe, and also share this with a friend? You know, I remember awaiting the birth of a new grandchild on the day that my son and the daughter of my heart were in the birthing center of their local hospital. You know, I typically refuse to call the women who've married my sons daughters-in-law because the law had so little to do with it. I mean, the only part of the law that was involved was the marriage license. But on that day, there was a sense of anticipation, knowing that later they'd be reporting the arrival of a new baby. It was a day of celebration, a day of joy. I mean, even her name, Beatrice, is Latin, meaning she who brings happiness. She was conceived in an act of love, born in an act of labor, and will continue to mature through a long process that, well, it's going to require both. I had written some fatherly thoughts to my son, who was about to become a father for the first time. And among the things I told him was, the birth of your first child will add to who you are in ways you could never imagine and ways I could never begin to explain. Your life is about to be transformed utterly and magnificently. Well, her birth was not a surprise. I mean, obviously it had been eagerly anticipated, but its arrival changed their lives forever. Today, as I sit back and recall her birth, I've seen it in a bit of a different light. I began to consider God, our Heavenly Father, anticipating the new birth of those who will respond to his offer of new life. He too is an expectant father, awaiting the birth of his children. According to the scriptures, each one of us who chooses to believe in our heart that Jesus is Lord and confess with our mouth that God raised him from the dead are born again into a totally new life. That event causes great rejoicing in heaven, by the way, and not only with the Father. Jesus tells us that there's joy in the presence of God's angels over every sinner who repents. As it was with my granddaughter's birth, the whole family rejoices together. It occurs to me that what I wrote to my son applies in greater measure to those who come to Christ. Giving your life to Christ, being reborn, will add to who you are. In ways you could never imagine, in ways I could never begin to explain, your life is transformed utterly and magnificently. Today's verse simply says, you must be born again. Of course, as with a normal physical birth, there are some ways the changed life can be anticipated and explained, but the point is that, well, far from the surface of the typical changes that everyone can anticipate, there's going to be intimate and unique changes for this relationship. As any parent with more than one child can tell you, each experience of birth, each process of attaining maturity, each life is totally different. Each encompasses its own exquisite joys and incalculable pains. Love will be different. Among the things I wrote to my son was, You may have thought before that you were capable of love. Tomorrow, its new depths will shock you. New life opens paths for new love, just as new love opens paths of new life. There's nothing to compare with new life, physical or spiritual. It's priceless, precious. And while there are many married couples who, for one reason or another, remain childless, that's never a wise spiritual choice. One final thought. As much as Beatrice's birth has changed the lives of the new parents, it's also most certainly going to change hers. Again, the spiritual parallels are astonishing. That's all the time we've got for this morning, friends. Before you go, could I please ask you to help me introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know him and his word personally and better? Please like this video. It truly does help more people see it. Then click follow or subscribe so you and I can get together every single day. If you click the link in the description, I'll drop a free copy of my book, Count to One, into your inbox. I think you'll like it. Hey, one more thing. Share this video with a friend, would you? Because as you do, you're part of the team, touching hearts all over the world with the love of Jesus. Thanks for helping.